Okay.
Are you guys having issues with Zoom over there? It's at a host-ended meeting twice. I don't know.
Yes, because I can't, the feedback is coming through on the YouTube video, so, I'm gonna try it again. Okay, I think we're good.
Okay, we're calling the meeting to order. Today's Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. This is the New Shoreham Planning Board. My name's Gail Hall. I'm the vice chair. Margie Cummings, the chair, is not in attendance today. We have Sasha Cohen, Chris Willie, Claire Stover, Bill Rose, and Mary Anderson. We have Jen Brady here with us and Allison Ring on Zoom and Karen Browning. Number one on our agenda is amendments to the New Shoreham zoning ordinance and land development and subdivision regulations for compliance with state law. We're to review draft amendments and make a recommendation to the town council, including a finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan, consultant Weston and Sampson. Do I have to read the full article? Okay. I'm going to ask Allison and Ashley to lead on this, if you would.
Sure. Okay, so Ashley Sweet from Weston and Sampson prepared draft amendments to zoning and subdivision sections. This is kind of the tier you've already adopted and sent to the council to adopt a lot of the tier 1 package. So a lot of these are tier 2 package coming for your review. So there's a number of sections to zoning as well as subdivision regs. So for the zoning, you'll be for those sections you're comfortable with passing along to the town council for giving a positive recommendation to the town council. They'll be before the town council for a public hearing. And then the subdivision regulations that you feel are ready can be advertised for a public hearing, which you'd vote on at the public hearing when that occurs before you. So Ashley, maybe you give kind of an overview of the sections, and then the planning board, if you had any comments or questions on any of those, you know, feel free to jump in and get those answered.
Thank you, Allison. So as you can see, there's a long list of sections of zoning that we've amended here, but a lot of those have to do with dealing with development plan review and the difference between whether there's going to be a special use permit as the mechanism for the planning board to weigh in, or whether you're going to be using development plan review as part of your mechanism to weigh in. And so a lot of the sections that are listed in there in the 400s section is where your zoning ordinance went by different types of districts and different uses, and said these uses in these districts require a special use permit, and had coupled together the issuance of a special use permit with development plan review. And so under the new regulations, when you have a development plan review project that requires a special use permit, the planning board becomes the permitting authority for that special use permit, and that leaves the hands of the zoning board and goes to the planning board as part of the development plan review under the unified development review process. And so in talking through with staff and with this, you know, the solicitor, in most places, we kind of uncoupled those two things and allowed the application for that specific type of development to just be governed by a special use permit, which would keep the special use permit with the zoning board. As soon as you add that level of planning review, you suck that special use permit out of the zoning board and into your world. And also kept the provision in there and tried to make it clearer that when there was just the issuance of a special use permit, that the planning board would be the advisory to the zoning board. So on a special use permit where we took out the development plan review piece of it, you will still see the application, you will still weigh in to the zoning board as the official permitting authority, and you'll be giving them an advisory opinion. And so that's how we kind of designed those uses in that 400 section, that were very specific to always keeping development plan review and a special use permit together. Allison, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, I think you summarized that. We talked about that at a prior meeting, so I think that was the direction the town wanted to go in. There was a little bit of a concern with maybe the planning board having so many applications and the zoning board not being involved with the special use permit process. So in this case, we're trying to keep it as similar as possible to what the town is used to for a process. So it wouldn't be necessarily like a formal development plan review, but we're trying to have the planning board have the opportunity to review and provide comments or, an advisory opinion. So without having just the planning board reviewing it and becoming the permitting authority under UDR. So that was the direction, we decided to give Weston and Sampson in crafting these amendments. And so it looks like a lot of sections, but really it's because New Shoreham's zoning ordinance had, all the different special use permits in their own sections, and then said DPR is required. So it's removing that DPR required language out of a lot of those sections. So it should keep the process fairly similar to what you are used to. It just wouldn't be like a public hearing before the planning board for DPR. In most cases, we left a couple that are like not frequent applications, but that was, large house regs, keeping that as a special use permit required with the zoning board, but the planning board providing that recommendation.
Okay, I greatly appreciate your work on this because we certainly needed some guidance here, especially having to keep in line with state regulation and knowing what would be acceptable and not. I had one question that I found on the ordinance number 23, Appendix E zoning, number C. There's submittal requirements, and there's a comment about the entire section does not feel appropriate here. Is there a recommendation, or did the recommendation follow in additional language? I wasn't sure if I was catching it.
Can you just tell me which section again, so I can pull that up? I want to.
Sure, it's
look
The
at
numbers,
it's ordinance number 23 and ordinance amending Appendix E zoning under section 702. Section C, submittal requirements. There is a side note on that page, and also the second page under number 6. And it seems like you might be already taking care of it, or are you asking for a recommendation from us?
I think Ashley was probably commenting that for staff, but in some
Okay.
cases where it's not necessarily state law, like, but in her experience, like sometimes noticing things in our ordinance that might want to be changed. So if it's, submittal requirements was the subtitle there, it might be the case where actually were those something that belongs in a checklist, like in some cases.
We did call that out a couple of times because as you went through the different types of uses, there would on occasion there was a separate section for that particular use that would say, for the submission of, and I'll just pick one off the list as an example, like a marina, you shall submit, and it would have something detailed like, the location of the dock or that kind of specific information, where we were just making a comment to the staff that typically that's not the kind of language you necessarily want in your zoning ordinance, and that to consider when looking at checklists that we could pull that out, put that into a checklist requirement, and then you wouldn't have these use by use kind of specific submission requirements that you'd have to kind of sort through the zoning ordinance in order to find them, and that you could contain all of those submission documents in one place. And then if you're not submitting, for a marina that has a dock, that becomes a not applicable checklist item, and everyone just kind of moves past it and you don't have to worry about it.
Okay, that explains that. Thank you. Did anyone on the board have any questions, comments, any issues that caught your eye?
Frankly, no, because I'm really under the impression that I have nothing to say about this. So I didn't invest the energy. What does come up frequently is the expression about, how do you say it? That a certain request matches our comprehensive plan, and it says over and over again that we are not allowed to do that. Any decisions that we make or recommendations that we make do not have to adhere to the comprehensive plan according to the rules that I'm reading.
So there was a change, and that was specific to special use permits, where they altered the language under special use permits, and they require you to have these specific and objective criteria for the issuance of the special use permit, but that one of your specific and objective criteria cannot be that it is, is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? And right. So the thinking, I understand your concern with the removal of that language. I think that's caused everyone who is accustomed to making that finding, it's caused them concern, and rightfully so. The logic behind doing what they did in removing that as a specific and objective criteria for the special use permit is that there is this inherent assumption that if you've put the use into your use table, even as a special use permit, that you're considering that to be a consistent use with your comprehensive plan, because if you didn't think that it was a consistent use, you would have prohibited the use or not allowed the use.
I
think that's a flawed argument, but that's the argument, or that's the basis behind which I understand that they changed the language in that way. So they're basically saying if you're putting it in your use table, and even if you're saying it needs a special use permit, you're essentially blessing it as a consistent use with your comprehensive plan just by the nature of the fact that you put it there.
The second concern I have in general is the explanation that if something is not stated as being prohibited, it becomes permissible. And my gosh, how many hypotheticals would you have to come up with to cover yourself?
Yeah, that is another item that has caused a lot of concern. And it does say, so it does say it a little bit differently than that, but the basic construct of zoning that we're accustomed to in Rhode Island is that if it's not listed in your use table, it's not permitted. The zoning official has always had the ability to interpret the zoning ordinance, so it's they've always had authority to have someone come to them and say, I don't find this specific use, but I believe I can classify you under this existing use, which either requires a special use permit or is a permitted use by right. The change that they've made is that if it's not specifically listed, it's now there is a process that you have to build into your ordinance that says that the individual who is seeking the use that is not specifically listed can go either to your zoning official or your zoning board. And I believe we put in the board as the authority there. And ask the board to make an interpretation that a use that is listed as a special use, covers the use that's not listed. So there's still an interpretation to be made. There's still, this is now going to the zoning board to look at this. And the requirement is that they pick a use that requires a special use permit. It doesn't say that it's a permitted use. It says that the use that requires a special use permit can basically cover whatever the not listed use is. So
You've lost me about 5 sentences ago.
sorry. Sorry. I don't know any way to
No,
make
but
that less technical, but
I can just see some legal consequences or
oh,
implications.
that's an understatement, and it applies to all of these amendments. They're all untested. We don't know how a land use judge is gonna interpret them. That's to be determined.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I agree with Gail and Sosha. Thanks for doing all this. What is it? On the ordinance number 23 of our handouts, page 3, under dwelling development. So that's 403 secondary dwelling development. I just wondered in section C of that, Allison, it's mentioned the site plan consisting of an accurate survey of the parcel showing topography, wetlands, trees, view sheds, and scenic views. How are the scenic views determined? Is that another not very black and white survey piece of the development, the dwelling development? Like, is there a view shed map to refer to?
Not something the town maintains. So is this existing language? Or is this something that's being amended?
It's not crossed out. It's standard. It's the
It's just part of the submission requirements for a secondary dwelling development.
for zoning board of review procedures.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just part of an application submission where if you are aware of scenic resources, like I mean, in some cases there are scenic easements, but
I don't know, it just felt to
not
me,
something that we have a database on or maintain as far
Right.
as
it felt like it could be vague, something that's, to Sosha's point, could be argued for or against. If
okay.
there's-
But is it listed as a submit, I have to pull up the language, if it's just saying, can you provide like existing conditions on a plan versus saying
So-
we're approving it, these are the standards in which the
It's a
board is
site, it's a
approving it.
it's a
There's some-
special use permit requirement, submission requirement under,
Submission,
yeah.
but not
Yeah.
a standard for approval.
No,
there's
so it's a submission
don't-
requirement for a site plan consisting of an accurate survey of the parcel showing topography, wetlands, trees, view sheds, and scenic views.
So I think it's okay. It's not in violation of state law, just you can.
No,
it
we
can
didn't
stay
alter
there.
that
It's just
language.
existing language. I don't think we need to, not something we need to address tonight.
Okay. I was thinking of it too in terms of the recent utility poles, on West Beach, where in the zoning ordinance, what triggers a review there or what doesn't trigger a review there. But that's a specific situation, so it doesn't pertain to the ordinance 23 necessarily.
Mhm.
Just the view shed felt vague and,
But we can always bring that up as a topic to review.
okay,
Um,
thank
Certainly.
you.
Any of the other board members? Chris? Claire? Bill?
No.
Anyone in the public have any comment? Give you some study material. So Jen, is this something do we have to vote on this?
You would want to, make a motion on the zoning portion to send it to the town council. That is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and then for the land development subdivision regs, you would make a motion to set the public hearing. And we can discuss with Allison and Karen if we should set that for July or August,
Okay,
just with advertising and all that.
but first for the New Shoreham zoning ordinance, would someone like to make a motion to now pass this to council for public hearing?
I can say so moved.
Okay, seconded? So we'll make a motion, the motion is made. Oh, yes, okay, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion moves.
Okay, that's consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay,
And
sorry.
then for the subdivision regs. Allison, do you think, July or August for setting the public hearing? They have to advertise for 3 weeks, if they're
Were
ready.
there any outstanding, Ashley, issues on some of the subdivision regs? Are these close to being? Let's see.
I think if there's anything left, it was probably pretty minor. We've worked out, I think, most of the big pieces.
So it's something that's, the language is ready for advertising this week, like it's gonna be, we can
Um,
send it, give it to Jen by Friday, like so she has time to advertise.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure by quickly
If there's any,
looking,
yeah,
make sure that there's no outstanding stuff.
I think I passed along a couple of Karen's CPR on the subdivision amendment comments. But
I don't know that there's anything that the board would have to weigh in on
Yeah,
before
yeah.
we were
yeah,
ready.
No, it's just whether or not the language.
Why don't we
would
go
be
ahead and-
ready.
yeah,
It's whether or
Yeah,
not the
I just wanna-
language would be ready for advertising. I mean, we could definitely wait until August 14th if you prefer to not have to get it to me by Friday. It's up to you.
why don't we go ahead and do it for July, I think.
Okay, so July 10th. So you would make a motion to set the
So-
public hearing.
Yeah,
for
do you need
July
it by, just to clarify, Jen, if it's Friday this week, is that fine?
I would have to look at it.
Okay.
I don't know if it's Friday, but it's a pretty quick turnaround.
All right, well, do you want to do August then?
Let's see. So for that, it would be,
July 10th is Wednesday.
yes, so it is Friday. Sometimes there's 5 weeks in between meetings, but there's less. So Friday, I would need to submit it to the newspaper for it to run for 3 weeks.
It'd be a summary anyway, right? So much language,
Right, I would just need the language to like have it available.
the summary language,
Well, any of the
and both,
amendments,
yeah, both,
yes.
right?
Do you want to wait till August 14th?
Okay, why don't we do that?
Okay. So now you would make a motion to set the public hearing for August.
So
14th.
I just let you know, I won't be available to attend on August 14th if you're
Okay.
holding the public hearing then. I'm happy to come if it's on a date that I'm available.
You think you would need?
All right, I think it'll be okay.
Okay, if Allison is attending, I
Okay.
think we could be okay. I mean, I'd certainly love to have you on board, but if Allison is comfortable with all this language, I'm
And
certainly
Karen would
comfortable.
be able to answer questions that
Yeah.
come up, yeah.
Good, okay.
So I just would like a clarification, please. Is the purpose of these public hearings to inform the public of the changes or to get their opinion? Because when I observed one of the public hearings at a town council meeting, and the town council voted to either accept or reject certain new regulations. And I thought that made no sense to me. Why vote on something you have no power over? And what would happen if all the members of the town council voted against a certain new state regulation?
I'm not entirely sure which one we're talking about there, but the process is a public process, and zoning ordinance amendments like these are required to go before the planning board like they are now for a public hearing. And then the planning board gives a recommendation to the council to hear it. Once it gets to the council, there's also a public hearing process. So the public hearings actually happen now, for example, with these, and then again at the council hearing, anytime zoning amendments are taken up for review.
But what is the point of the town council voting either in favor or against these regulations when they have no say?
Well, they do. They have some say.
Because
Are some changes, and it's their duty to hold the public hearing, just like for the subdivision regs, you hold the public hearing as the planning board. So
And
it's the
just
process to amend.
just to add to that, the State Enabling Act is set up so that the legislature gives the power to the municipalities to both adopt and amend your zoning ordinance. So anytime there is a change to the zoning ordinance, the town council has to approve that. They have to adopt it.
Yeah, I think if I might add, also with the reason we hired Weston and Sampson, or the town did, was to protect a lot of the language that we have in place, or maybe protect isn't the correct word, but to continue working as well as we can under the, you know, the way we have been, because it's been successful. Yet we had to comply with certain components, and therefore changes had to be made. Am I correct?
That's right. Not only did you have to come into compliance with the state law, but by doing that, it triggered other necessary changes throughout the ordinance, which also had to be dealt with and approved.
Okay. All right. Does that make sense? Almost. Yeah. All right. So I'd like to make a motion to have the public hearing on August 14th for the land development and subdivision regulations, sorry, that's stated twice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone object? Okay, so moved. So the next item on our agenda is tour business. Discuss and act on a request to provide the town council with findings and a recommendation for an amendment to zoning ordinance, Article 2, Section 202, definitions, New Shoreham zoning ordinance regarding tour business. Adding to Article 2, 202, definitions, Article 3, Sections 306 and 312, and amending the zoning Appendix B. We're using categories allowed by the zoning district table. I understand that the council created a tour category.
That's my understanding from the town clerk, that this ordinance amendment came from the town council.
Okay,
And they're asking you to determine which zones it should be in. The proposal has it in RB, M, Old Harbor Commercial, New Harbor Commercial, and Service Commercial. So I think you should evaluate that and determine whether or not those zones are appropriate. But I think Karen Browning had crafted this language.
okay.
That's my understanding.
I didn't see any issues with the language. My only question to the new ordinance was the zone. In what we were presented, RB and mixed were included, but RC and RCM were not. And to me, that's puzzling because RB is more residential. Mixed is borderline. RC and RC mixed are business, essentially business zones almost, or a real good mix of business and commercial.
Yes, and that's exactly why this ordinance is before you from the council, so that the planning board with its experience and understanding of planning and zoning can evaluate issues like that and come up with what you recommend the proper zones to be.
Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts on the including RB? I mean, I think we should continue with the zones that they have plus RC and RCM, but I'm also debating to take out RB.
I agree. Just based on dealing with the ordinance every day, I think our RV and RA are pretty residential, and
Mhm.
I don't know if that's appropriate or not, or if there's a reason behind it, but then you want to add RC and RCM. I mean, there
Mhm.
are commercial businesses.
RC and RCM makes sense, RB doesn't.
Yeah, RV does not.
The only thought I had was if someone had a strong feeling about RB was to put that one in as special use.
That's a good idea. Because they're,
I
yeah,
just don't know
that's a good
if someone
idea.
felt strongly about it being an RB for a reason I'm not
I-
thinking of.
I don't think so. That's not that, I asked Millie, the town clerk about that, and she said she did not know of any reason for it to be an RV.
Gotcha. Then I think I'm in favor of RC, RCM, mixed, commercials, and taking out RB.
do you think we should have RB as special use? No, okay.
I don't.
No, I think if it comes up and there's a request from an applicant through the amendment to the zoning ordinance, then they could present that, but at this point, we don't have that. We don't have any information on RB, RA, those are residential, there isn't really a commercial
Mhm.
use in those zones, other than
Well, for example, I think the high views in our,
prior existing use. Yeah,
Okay.
if it's prior existing non-conforming, then we
Okay.
have them,
okay.
we definitely have them, but it isn't permitted use.
So let me just make sure I understand. The location of the business should not be in RA and RB, but a tour can be.
Sure, well, the tour, yes. I mean,
Right?
it could
They
be.
can pass.
all
Tour
through
can be
and
anywhere.
start from-
Yeah, on state, like on roads and
Right,
wherever they go, I don't know.
right, okay. I
It
just
depends
want to
on
make
the
sure.
type of tour business, I
Mhm.
guess. But it's the location where you would go to pick up your
Right,
fishing tour equipment or your, I don't know, bike tour or
Mhm.
something like that.
I agree.
So just so I'm understanding, so I think he's have to make some additional changes. The sounds like the consensus as of right now is the following zones, it would be no in RA, no in RB, permitted in RC, permitted in RCM, permitted in M, permitted in HC, excuse me, permitted in NHC, permitted in SC, not permitted in PU. Did
So
I
that's
get that?
So a plan development, that's something the board might want to discuss. The plan developments are Salt Pond Settlement and Old
The
Harbor
community center.
Meadows, where the community center is. So the zone for the community center, that whole area is, I mean, it could be, it's actually two different zones, because it's Old Harbor Commercial and
Hmm.
I think RC, maybe RC, but it is the PU, the plan development zone. So I
It's
don't,
PU, not PD?
it's
I thought PU is public utility, no?
Oh,
okay, PD would be the plan
development.
development.
Plan development,
So-
yeah, and I don't
Right,
see
so
that
that's
on
public
I'm just looking at
utility.
the table for ease of use. That's a great point, Jen. There might be other zones further down.
We also have the medical center zone, we have the public education zone, so we'll take it out of the public utility zone and add it, leave it in the other one, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so the way that I read it off with everything, including not in the PU zone, is correct. So that seems, I think I got that. But now Jen, you raise an interesting point because once you go out of the table and into your text, it does seem like there are other zones to consider that aren't really listed on your table. So I think we need to make a decision as to those zones as well.
So you would have the public or the planned development.
Mhm.
You have the coastal zone, which I'm sure would be a hard no. I mean, I can't speak for you, but that would be my guess. You have
center.
the medical center zone, the public education zone, and that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
What about the town properties?
So it depends, nope, they don't have special zoning, only the school, the medical center.
What about the rental unit where our town manager lives, that
That
property?
is not, that's in the RB.
Oh, that's
That is
considered
RB,
RB?
it's just under different sections.
Oh, okay.
So really the public or the planned development and coastal zone, medical center and public education.
And public utility.
You already said no to that one.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about those.
No.
I don't see why any reason a business would even be
Keep them in the commercial
entertained in
zone.
those zones.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything offhand anyway.
So that's a no on coastal zone. That would be a no on planned development zone. And a no on public education zone.
And put in public utility.
And public utilities
Public-
is already the
yep.
table as a no, yep.
And medical center.
Medical,
It actually has a zone. I don't know if it's called medical zone.
Yeah, it's not in the.
It's a medical, it is, I think it's called the medical centers at the medical zone.
MC.
Yeah. medical
Okay.
center
you
zone.
have an M zone, but I think that might be your mixed.
That's
Yeah.
mixed.
All right, I'm just gonna make a note here that medical zone is also a no.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
listed as C on this.
I don't see that on the list. So I'm missing it. I don't see that on the list of establishment of zoning districts. So I'll just write it in and I'll make the change down below. Okay,
Does anyone,
I'll also update this table so we could maybe vote on it at a future meeting, the uses allowed by zoning districts, just, it is helpful to have.
Mhm.
Probably needs to be updated.
definitely. Any other comments from any of the board members? Any comments from the audience? Questions?
They just want us to get moving.
All right, so I believe I make a motion to. Do we have to, does this go back to the council for their final approval with the additions that we've made at this meeting?
yeah, so you would approve a version that you would recommend the council to take up under public hearings for passage.
Okay, so yes, that's the. I'm sorry, I'm not good at making motions. I'll make a motion to send to council the amendment as they presented with the addition of the zones that we would like added as
So-
discussed.
And to say that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, and you're going to not allow it in RA, RB, public utility, plan development, coastal zone, medical zone, and public education. But it is permitted in RC, RCM mixed, Old Harbor Commercial, New Harbor Commercial, Service Commercial.
Okay, do I have to repeat that?
No, I don't think you have. I already wrote it down.
Sorry. Pardon me, I'm not accustomed to chairing the meeting.
I just want to
Um,
make sure.
yeah, thank
I
you.
understood it correctly.
Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Everyone was in favor?
Everyone.
Okay.
So moved. The next application is a Draper application that I have to recuse from, and I believe I can actually state, even though I'm recused, that is going to be moved to the July meeting.
No, I think Chris is going to make a motion to continue the public hearing to June 20th. As long as everyone's in agreement with that date. I think so. I think everyone is. And the applicant is also in agreement.
So,
Jen, is that it? That's a 12 noon meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a quorum for about an hour. Give or take.
So items 3, 4, 5, and 6, Garden Lot and Eureka Hotel are going to be continued until June 20th at noon.
An hour is not enough.
Well, it's going to depend if Sosha and Bill are brought up to speed and can participate, if you feel comfortable sitting on it, whether or not, how the quorum works out. So we
Okay.
might have 4 even if Claire has to leave early, so we might have longer than an hour. I guess
Oh,
is what I'm
okay.
saying.
So we'll have more than an hour,
Possibly.
possibly?
Yes.
I have a question. If we only get to 2 items in that time period, can we move those forward?
They're individual applications.
So in
Yes.
theory, we can.
I would think so.
Okay.
I don't,
Yeah, I'm just
in
saying.
theory, yes. You
I
could
mean,
vote
we don't
on-
have the space and we have to end. But we can check a couple off. It's, all right.
Okay, and I sent Sosha and Bill an email about watching the YouTube video and the packet, all the material, so that you're comfortable sitting on it.
But if all the applications were submitted at the same time, don't we have an allotted time period to either approve or not approve all of them?
Yes, we have time. I mean, it's timed, yes. But at this point, we didn't we only had 4 members at the May 8th meeting.
Yep, but
So trying to get a quorum,
no, I understand that, but how much time do we have in total for all of them?
2 weeks ago.
yeah,
Seriously,
but seriously, I mean, we're past, it's
past the
probably
time.
past that time.
does that get?
There was a
attention?
notice issue that was on the applicant's part that delayed it a month, but
So are we in trouble then?
no, because you're continuing this to a date certain, so it's June 20th at noon.
And you can do that indefinitely?
No, you cannot.
So what is the ultimate?
Have I
time?
seen it happen? Yes, like 2,
Um,
3 years, but
Um,
it has in the past. But for this application, you're continuing it to a date certain so that they don't have to re-advertise and we don't have to send notices to abutters again.
Oh, okay.
So I made the motion. Anybody second it?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, so the next topic on our agenda is Blue House Holding LLC. Care of Eric and Jennifer Connolly, Plat 17, Lot 31, fire number 588 Beach Ave. This is a public hearing for an application for development plan review application by Rob Sanders Architects for a special use permit under sections 307E, 406, and 703 for construction of an addition to an existing single-family dwelling.
Good afternoon, I'm Rob Sanders, Rob Sanders Architects in Connecticut, and this is Andrew Almeida. Who you've met before? Yes.
Welcome.
Oh, there we go.
No, I thought it was on, but
Maybe somebody can stand at that one. So that green light.
we're not going to do it in harmony.
Sometimes it's hard for the staff to hear it.
Thank you for the opportunity to hear us again and give me an excuse to come out and block on such a gorgeous day. So it's a lovely sale. We're back here because of some questions that you had. And I'll let Andrew start first with some additional views that we submitted for this application.
Yes, so as requested last meeting, we have some 3-dimensional views of existing and proposed conditions that I'd like to hand out now.
And yeah, it's reminded this is a public hearing, so this is just continue.
So while Andrew's doing that, it's 588 Beach is a 1877 house, which the owners have had for more than 20 years or so in the family. And between when they purchased it originally and today, Jen Connolly's parents built the adjacent building, as you see in the top photograph, which is a 2-car garage and a stairway up to a bedroom suite there. So the purpose of exploring an addition is because there's approximately 6 feet of topography between the 2 buildings. a very steep stairway inside the house means that it's very difficult to move around and access the house for family use. Andrew, do you want to talk about just kind of what we're looking at with the different views?
Yeah, sure. So the first view is kind of the main shot of the house, looking southeast from the driveway at the main facade of the existing 1887 structure, along with the newer garage, and then our proposed connector addition. Again, existing shot being on top, proposed below. The next sheet is looking from the road of Beach Ave down a little bit of the grade of the front lawn there. Again, a kind of a straight on shot. The third sheet and views are from the southeast looking northwest at the corner of the house, showing the connector both from the garage as well as the one coming south from the main house block. The fourth view and sheet is a similar angle, zoomed out further beyond the wetlands and the ponds that encroach onto the southern portion of the property. And then the last sheet and final views are from the east, looking west at the house, showing the again, the main block of the house and the addition coming to the south.
So I think as Andrew discussed at your last meeting, it's been our goal to, one, have an architectural context that's similar to the original house and the connection between the two. We've worked to try to keep our volume restricted. A lot of this is forced by the desire to have an entry space that's at the driveway level. The addition does not exceed the height of the 2006 edition of the garage. And yet connection between the driveway, the main living level, and the bedroom space that's over the garage. They also wanted to have a family room addition, and that you see from the eastern orientations, which extends out towards the pond and the wetlands. It will allow us to create stairways and accommodate an elevator if needed in between the two structures to strike all these different levels. So there are a couple of issues that brought in review by the town engineer consultant James Jeremiah, and Natural Resource Services, which came in between the last meeting and today. And I don't know whether you've all had a chance to read those applications. Starting with from the natural resource side, it's basically an analysis of the site features, about buffers. What's interesting in Rhode Island is that the buffer zones are variable depending on the topography and the wetlands assets that are on a site. So, but I point you towards Scott Rabidou's kind of last three paragraphs in his findings. Applicant's proposed addition, patio, porch, and on-site water treatment system components all occur within the required buffer zone. However, since no buffer is present within the area of the affected buffer zone, proposed activities would not require a variance. Where no buffer is present, the regulations require adherence to a minimum 20-foot setback from the wetlands edge to any portion of the proposed primary structure. At its closest point, the proposed addition, a primary structure by definition, is approximately 35 feet from the shrub swamp. Therefore, the project as proposed does not require a variance from the setback standards. Based on his review, the site development plan and visual inspection of the property, it's their professional opinion that the proposed qualifies for submission as an application to the freshwater permit without variances. And that'll come back to. There is no rule prohibiting this application if a local special use permit is ultimately required for the project. As such, the applicant can submit for the DEM permit as requested by the town. that's interesting because then in May 29th's letter from Jeremiah, he goes over the fact that he reviewed the application. He had concerns about DEM reviews and test hole data, which were addressed. And then we got into a discussion with our consulting engineer, Ken Cole of Atlas Land Surveying, who prepared the site plan, designed the OTWS. We seem to be jogging back and forth between, can we go to DEM with our application? Ken's been concerned, and he waved this at me with a big red circle around saying, has the variance for local zoning setbacks been sought? If so, apply yes. And I think he got burned once, that when he tried to move the process forward, it got kicked back to him and kind of he got a slap on the wrist. I appreciate his concern. The point is that Jeremiah then looked this over and in response to Ken's letter, sent another in Ken's response to the letter of May 29th, Jeremiah came back on the 7th, wrote you a letter that said, okay, his concerns about the site plan, the septic system, and test holes were addressed. And then they're going back and forth again on the application requirements for the application to DEM. My comment to Ken in a conversation yesterday was, our goal is to move forward. Our goal is to comply. We've been found by natural resources to not have to go to extraordinary means with coastal or inland water management issues. So we want to make you satisfied that this application is as good as it can be as far as protecting the land use assets on the property. And we'll do what you want. If the answer is we want that application to go into DEM, we'll put it in. We have it signed, ready to go, write the check, and it'll be all right. If we should wait, as he wants, on the application DEM, and you agree, we'll do it that way either way. But primarily, we've tried to produce an addition that's responsible to context, responsible to the natural environment, and responsible to our clients' goals for the house. So with that, I don't want to belabor, this is, I think, our third visit with you, to say, do you have questions, comments about the images? Let us know what you're thinking.
I have a question. We received a chart on what the request is today that differs from May's. The one that was submitted on May 8th, the one that's submitted today.
Yeah, the one that was submitted yesterday is the most up-to-date one. So just to be clear, the design or square footages of the house has not changed. The first one that was distributed was actually provided by someone from the town of New Shoreham after taking square footages from our application. The difference was that the building footprint where starred, excluding ground level deck / unenclosed porches, did include the decks and unenclosed porches. So I updated that number to accurately reflect that note. The rest should be in compliance with our plans and everything that we've submitted previously. So
Okay.
like I said, the design and.
So it really was a matter of the porches are not considered living space.
Correct.
Okay. I have further comment, but I'd love to hear what the board has to say too. If anyone have any questions, comments?
Just rather benign. First of all, I think the design is friendly in the sense that we have different roof heights. The applicant clearly did not bulk in his or her design, and that really pleases me. And I was wondering if after we're done discussing all of this, if we could expedite the matter by giving, assuming we do want to give an approval, that it be dependent on DEM's recommendation as well. But that, at least that would give you one step less, 1 month less to wait.
Right, you know, I'm sorry, you're directing it to your own comments, but obviously we're playing by the book here, you know? So,
I just want to mention that they could go to the DEM and see what the DEM has to say about it prior to local approval. I mean, they could certainly receive local approval and then go to the
Mhm.
DEM process, go through that process. So
I just think it's important.
CRMC is different where you have to have local approval prior to obtaining CRMC.
Yeah, and that was made clear today by James Jeremiah's letter, but I think we do need to talk about the size of the house, because I don't want to send you to DEM and then you have you come back and we say, well, gosh, you're really gonna have to tweak these plans because it's too big for the site. I'd love to hear what others' thoughts are, because I agree with Sosha. I think the design is nice. I think it looks great. You've kept it's in keeping with the historic character and nature. It's just the site is sensitive, if that's the
Yeah.
right word.
Yeah.
And I visited the site and it's so close to the water. Getting any closer to the water's edge, to me, has me in questioning it. And therefore, and it's unfortunate because it is a great design. It's a great look and it's a great property, but I'm just wondering if it's too small for the size of the overall structure. And we have, as a board in the past, have had to decline based on proximity to wetlands, for the, due to the exceeding the 2,000 square foot large home ordinance. And even on properties without wetlands, we've tried to keep everyone as close to the 2,000 square feet as possible. And I understand it's difficult and challenging with this architecture, but we have to discuss whether we can approve something so similar to what we declined to other people. Yeah, we've set precedences trying to adhere to the 2,000 square foot rule. And when we have granted with greater square footage than allowed, or by special use permit is allowed by special use, they've had 4 acres and no wetlands, expansive properties, lots of room, no challenges to face. Those are my thoughts. Having chimed in before, I said I would let you guys chime in, sorry.
So what part of the addition, if any, brings the total structure closer to the wetlands?
The family room projection is the part that comes furthest out.
Can you show
Which
which page would show that best?
It's the gable end seen from
Yeah,
the
it's the
southeast
gable end
corner, which
coming
is,
from the south, the southern portion of the site.
So this section will bring it
yes,
closer.
where the fireplace is. I think she's got it. Right, the part that has an expressed fire.
Can you show me just with your finger roughly where the
Yeah,
wetland is?
yeah.
Because I see that what was the garage? Where's
the garage.
Yes.
This is the body and screen porch of the
Right.
existing house, so it's.
Where's the wetland is what
The
I'm.
wetland is down at the coast.
Over here?
It waddles around it.
Sosha, I'm finding the aerial view, the survey to be pretty helpful in looking.
Hold it up, but I can also hold it in front of you. So Beach Road. So this outline here is the existing garage with bedroom. This,
Turn that, I'm sorry, Chris, could you turn the microphone for it?
I don't know how good it is, I don't want to be too far away, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I have a picture.
So this block is the existing garage. Here's the original house, which has wraparound porch. This is the wetlands edge line, so it's running on this diagonal. So the garage in back away from the road. And I take off my glasses and read, is 44 feet 4 from the proposed red land. The proposed corner from the existing wetland. From the proposed corner, we're at 36 feet. And I can't read whatever it is, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're about in total, what's that, my quick math, is about 7 feet closer from the wetlands, flag wetlands line, in total.
I think this was part of your.
It
proposal
is.
too, correct?
What was that number for the,
7.
you're 7 feet from?
7 feet closer.
Okay, so what?
We're
what's
at
the
30.
dis-
Andrew, can you read it? It's 35 feet.
You're 35
30
feet,
36 feet 3.
36 feet, 3 inches.
Right, so 36
flag
to 40
to the flagged wet.
to the flag wetlands. There also by topography is like 5.5 feet, 6 feet in topography difference.
In
You can
elevation.
argue, well, that's mitigative, or you can argue the water's going down faster at that point. So let me go back.
Mhm.
So you have. The other things that are part of this application is that we have designed buffer zones with plantings that are all supposed to go along that edge there. And that was submitted on Ken's site plan. Also, there is no control on the runoff from the house now. It's just, it all spills out on gutters onto the grade. That works, but in modern technology now, we gather it, we put it into infiltrators, and we actually bring it over to the other side of the site. So in so doing, we're actually reducing the load both from the existing house and from the addition and bringing it towards the front. The final other part that's major here is that the septic system that was built in 2000 basically is infiltrators into the sand there, and the new septic system design is we're going to rip out a 25-year-old septic system and put in a new conforming septic system that works with the current code, which slows down that infiltration in these sandy soils. So, you know, stepping back and taking the overall picture here, we're not only addressing the additional coverage we're proposing now, but we're taking in the existing house and making it meet current drainage goals and runoff goals. So again, we're not trying to duck. We're trying to do it right. So.
Comments?
Can I, as an off islander, you know, and seeing different towns and where we come, Wilton is Southern Connecticut. So what's interesting about the way you interpret your regulations, you've set caps where you don't need a special use permit. You've set maximum, really don't go above it. I don't have the experience to know whether anybody busts through those or not. But you've set a zone in between where you're saying, we want to review and take things case by case. See an individual site, see what's being proposed and why it either is responsible to the site and all the other social factors that are involved, but mainly the site and its environmental impacts. And therefore we sit in front of you and we sit in front of conservation, which we did pass cleanly, and we hopefully will go on to zoning. You know, it's understanding that there are reasonable accommodations to be made site by site and goal by goal. So I hope we've tried to work within that section of reasonableness. It is fascinating to look at all of the different ways that the language calls out site coverage and building volume and things like that. And some of those numbers seem large. But the ones that are actually the living area in there are different from kind of the overall site coverage. We've got a lot of porch here, which is an architectural element that is important. You know, if we didn't have the porches, the numbers would all be lower, but this is the charm of the house. It is what we want. We've tried to stay, as I say, between you're fine, we don't need to regulate, and we don't want this because it's out of scale with block. And we've tried to be in that zone. So.
Gail, I could, I think the way you just summed it up actually is really nicely done. And there is a reason that we have some wiggle room between that 2000 and you know, our permitted and then our cap. I personally do have a problem with the fact that a large chunk of your addition goes within that 50-foot wetland buffer. And I personally feel uncomfortable moving forward without having some guidance from the DEM or from someone about what the buffer needs to look like in order for something like that to happen. You know, I think there's room on the property to not have it but quite so far into that buffer zone. I really appreciate all you've done. It is a beautiful house. But I have concerns about that myself. That's how I feel about it at this point, is really the site, the location of the house on this property, its proximity to the wetland. And as you were describing, we do have this wiggle room, and that wiggle room is often for properties that are much bigger, that are not quite as sensitive. And that allows us to work with folks and we want to work with you to make this possible. But I do have concerns about that.
So I just have a question up
Mhm.
for Mr. Sanders. Do you need CRMC approval?
We don't.
So,
So what we needed is DEM.
right, so
Because this is
Technically-
this is an inland wetland body, and where some of the more, obviously more restrictive regulations are.
no, so they need DEM, but they also need CRMC. So once the DEM sends it to CRMC, I cannot sign off on that CRMC form until they receive local approval.
So that's
So
that's the ping pong that's been going on between the consultants. You know,
That's why,
Has anyone addressed DEM about what?
could you get like a,
We're having this
right,
ping pong, will they accept it, will they not? Has anyone gone to DEM to say, this is what we're dealing with, these are the board's concerns?
so far, we have been guided by Ken Cole to be cautious about going forward to DEM because he thinks that we're going to get kicked back.
but I think you could have maybe a preliminary conversation or
But I thought,
something with the DEM, I would think.
and I thought James confirmed that DEM will review it.
That's, so
Hmm.
being in between the two is like, okay, I'm listening to this.
Yeah.
And we received Jeremiah's comments, a couple of weeks ago and then last week
Mhm.
on kind of the back and forth. And it seems to be the only issue that he had reservations about. He was satisfied on the environmental mitigation and the planting buffer and everything else. So here we are. And
Yeah.
as I say, we'll send it tomorrow if that's the right thing to do. And so by the time zoning would get it, hopefully we would get at least a preliminary, no, you didn't push the button with the one that goes in for a special use permit to be filed with the application. Welcome to the world. We're all automatic. That's how we file.
Well,
So I'm caught, and it's not your responsibility
Sure.
to guide us through this, but it is an interesting conflict.
So maybe the bottom line question for us is, if DEM approves this project, would we approve it?
would we send a favorable advisory?
Yes.
Because this goes to zoning, correct? Or no?
You're
Yes.
advising
Yeah,
to zoning,
okay.
for development plan review and the advisory, so, yeah, you might,
Bill, did you?
maybe
have a comment?
Allison could,
My thoughts, I think we should let them move forward without having to go to DEM. So
Because we're gonna need to get it eventually. There's no way
I think
around.
what he's saying is just gonna get kicked back to us
So I'm sorry, you're saying to approve it?
to approve it.
Okay. Chris?
If with DM, like, this has to go to DM,
Hmm.
so. Not being familiar with the DM's process and with CRMCs. They're likely, what's the likelihood of them
Can you move your microphone? Sorry. So Allison and Karen can.
I would approve with DM approval, but that clearly isn't something that we can do.
Allison, Karen, is there any way to receive a preliminary DM? I don't know.
I mean, we raised this a couple months ago about the wetlands application and, made that recommendation to the applicant. So what, did you say you submitted OWTS application to DEM?
No, it's.
That was on the list of Jim's, like, his memo, so did
This
that
is, I know you're over there. This is what we're going back and forth.
on OWTS?
Yes. And because we don't need CRMC.
I still, what
I
I'd
know you
like
don't
to,
need CMC, but you need wetlands and a septic, like for your new septic system.
they need wetlands approval because they're within the 50-foot setback.
Correct.
Correct. And it is standing water and it is a substantial wetland that runs over across the street. So we really do, we know we need DEM. I think we need DEM to review it. Or maybe that's our majority. We haven't voted on that yet, but I want to go back to everyone really considering this being almost 500 feet over the 2,000 square foot ruling, because we cannot base our opinion on architecture. We can't have another applicant come to us and say, you approved another one just because that house looks good. I just want everyone to really thoroughly think about
But it is,
the applications we've pressed upon to get closer to the 2,000 square foot rule. And maybe that's because you're doing an addition and not creating a new home. We can use that.
Well, I look at it as basically the bulk of this addition is stairway.
Well, no, there's a.
I know
family room
I
and-
know there's a room.
Yeah,
I know that part.
there's
The
an extra
necessity-
800 square feet.
The
That's not just
necessity
stairway.
for, someone mention elevator?
yes.
So if there's gonna be, discussion on the necessity should focus on that, not necessarily addition of the room. If we want them to modify it, like, I see having particularly for, let's say, people older needing to get into their homes, like, because I've seen it out here before where, this is where they want to be, they can't get from one place to the next without an elevator, without a
Sure.
stairway, so that's kind of where I would want to focus the discussion on
Mhm.
that necessity. Not, if the setback's going to be an issue for everybody. It's not an issue for me with DM approval. But the necessity to get from the garage to the house, and it's up like it's a steep, that location has got, the topography is crazy in the back and in the
Yeah,
front.
it dips
Yeah.
right down to the pond, but I think, well, we all have access to the interior and there is an addition above and beyond an elevator and a staircase. So,
And when I initially met with the applicant, I suggested that they detach the garage because that adds to the overall building footprint. So,
right.
that isn't something, I see that quite a bit, where the garage is attached and now it adds this massive amount to the building footprint and then they're over. So they
So,
detach it.
so we're not changing our bedroom count, but right now, all of the bedrooms are inaccessible. Now, I realize somebody can sleep on the couch in the living room.
Mhm.
That's a different thing. But the goal was to get to accessible bedrooms. Jen Connolly's parents lived next door, Henry and Carol Hill, and they built a lovely house. And I don't know exactly the year that they did that, but it is inaccessible. Let's hear it for foresight on all our parts, as we all, so this is part of the planning here, is to try to make the thing accessible. You mentioned something, and you said that there's wetlands across the street. I don't think you meant that. I think whatever's across the street is quite distant as far as any wetland.
And that's where we need DEM's review, because the wetland behind the house feeds to the wetland across the street. It goes to Trim's Pond. It runs from
Okay.
behind your house. That same body feeds the Great Salt Pond.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. It was not in close proximity to the property, so.
I
But
don't
again, that
remember
goes
exactly where,
to
yeah.
the goal of dealing with our septic and our site drainage
Mhm,
in modern ways that meet their codes on site,
mhm.
while, keeping our well radii and everything else, and obviously keeping the design of that is all in the front where it is now, but renovating all of that
Mhm.
as well as trying to renovate the building. So,
I think my point is more, because I agree, DEM, they're the experts, they're the specialists, they're the ones who understand what impact development has on a wetland, and if there is any. I'm looking more at this stage, after hearing everything that we're hearing, I don't want to set a precedent that we're allowing an expansion based on architecture. I think that'll get us in trouble in
understood.
the future.
Whether it was pretty or ugly,
Yeah.
that would be a different thing.
That's not our jurisdiction.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I guess as I scratch my head as trying to advise the Connollys, when our hired expert says one thing and the town engineer says another, how to bring this forward. And as I say, it seems if we can get to the zoning commission and get to the special use permit, we solve this problem. I would be, and I'm sure the Connollys would be totally fine conditioning our approvals on DEM and CRMC, as they are going to have to create the new septic system. Otherwise, we're no building permit, we're no nothing.
Mhm.
So we understand that completely. But this chicken and egg kind of discussion is challenging.
And
You know.
it's the planning board responsibility to weigh in on whether or not it's a favorable or unfavorable. Doesn't,
Sure.
I mean, you could certainly send an unfavorable advisory to the zoning
I
board and list
could
your
hope that-
reasons why.
Yeah.
And the zoning board may or may not approve the special use permit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that is an option, and it will come back to you once you send the advisory for
Mhm.
or against.
Chris and Claire, do you guys want to comment?
I just wanted back to Jen's comment earlier, is like, the overage is what, again, 500?
Just shy of, correct?
Just shy of?
I couldn't find it in my
So,
email and I didn't
502.
print it. I'm sorry.
502.
502
The overage on which portion?
on the living
Building.
square feet.
Oh, sorry.
Or we're-
Living square feet.
So it's
Was-
14 feet into the wetlands.
No, we're
setback.
talking about the,
And then the living, it's actually pretty substantial compared to the other applications that you have reviewed.
right,
my
that's been my point.
And,
I think, is it 496? I don't have that
It's-
in
It
front of me.
may have been
Sorry.
before, but I think we're at 502 in our statement, right, Andrew?
Okay,
Yeah, which one-
so individual building footprint, or it's really
Yeah.
maximum building footprint is 3,447, but you're at,
We don't exceed any of the maximums.
Right.
you
You
exceed
just exceed all
your,
the special use.
right.
criteria.
So
Oh, wait, the
they
threshold,
exceed
the
what is
threshold.
allowed by right. They exceed, so for living floor area, by right is 4,000 square feet. They are proposing 4,738 square feet. Gross area is 5,000 square feet by right, and they're proposing 7,595 square feet. So
And
in my
that's
opinion,
if-
that's a substantial,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but if I can
Increase.
point out.
but you can, let me just finish,
Yep.
and then you, but you don't have a prohibited number for that gross area. And for building volume, the trigger, so the by right is up to 45,000 cubic feet. They're at 50, so it's over just a little bit, 11%. But building footprint by right is 2,000 square feet, and they're at 3,330, which the prohibit is 3,500. So they're pretty close to
Can I
that.
point out one thing on the 7,500 square foot number, and I don't have the exact one in front of me. It's a requirement to pick up attic area in that.
Crawl space.
And
unhabitable
crawl space.
basement,
and
The
basement areas.
definition, I can read the definition of
Thank you.
gross area defines 202, number 86, the total area of building measured in square feet from the exterior limits thereof, including all living areas, attic space, unfinished basements, crawl spaces, porches, decks, attached garages, and any exterior space attached to the building, excluding uncovered patios.
So for instance, the old house has a basement and I can't stand up in
Yeah.
Yeah.
it.
You know, we're.
You know,
the-
so
The issue is the site might just not be the right place for the project. That's the unfortunate reality that we're facing.
Right. It's
But,
volume on
but to
that.
some extent, you know, a historic structure is penalized in this context because it's short in the basement and then long in, you know, in a peaky roof
Mhm.
that has an aisle this wide that I can walk through and all of the rest is dead space. And it also has a low plate. So not only is the attic narrower, but prescribed by its height, keeping the building height down.
Mm.
So it's not about architecture, but it is about the architectural volume
Right, it's
that
volume.
kills us.
Right.
Mhm.
It pushes that 75, us into that 7,500
So
number,
for the
which looks
gro-
like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
you
For
know.
the gross area, because that is the higher number and the building footprint, why didn't you detach the garage from the house?
I guess it was our whole goal to make that a useful space
That's
without
what-
going outside and back in.
Because that's what's giving you the bulk that
Yeah.
we're seeing
Yeah.
even on a
That's-
2 acre site. And it's,
If
we're saying no to that bulk on a 2 acre site. How do we say yes on a
You know.
Below
and
2 acre.
40,000 square foot or 50,000 square feet that you have left?
A solution here would be, okay, make the garage into a bedroom, just speaking as an architect. Okay, do that and
Mhm.
and put in a freestanding garage. Why is that better? It isn't, you know, it would blow up the square foot that much more, even though maybe by the metrics of the various square footages here, it would actually be less non-conforming. That's not a goal.
So I just want to point out, this is
So-
the residential B zone. I think most of the large house applications that you have seen would be RA. And that this is a substandard lot. So the lot area in the residential B zone is 60,000 square feet. And this is 55,167 square feet. I mean, you have reviewed, I think, a few applications on a
Substandard.
standard.
But
Actually, I'm not completely sure. I would
if I
have to go back and
recall,
look.
and I meant to research that more thoroughly, but from the ones I
Allison
recall
might know.
offhand, they were 2 to 4.5 acre lots that we have heard.
Oh, there.
They were, yeah.
There's Corn Neck, Coast Guard. What just recently West Side Road.
Mhm.
So there's two issues, the bulking and the wetland, that's concerns.
Yeah.
So if one can't be solved, like one issue is basically an architectural issue, like it has to be scaled down from what I'm hearing. And the second issue is DM approval for
Yeah,
mitigating the.
right. It's the volume of the house.
I
And the
think for
site,
me-
can the site accept that volume? No.
For
And-
me, it's the
Wetlands.
bulking that addition is in the buffer zone. You know,
Mhm.
the house is moving, the built structure is moving more into the zone than out of the zone. I think that's the challenge for me, is sort of the combination of those two things together. That we're having this bulking and the bulking is happening within the buffer zone.
So in fairness to the client, because in the past we would say, go back, draw something smaller, and then we still didn't like it, and that costs money and time and whatnot. So if the board feels that the house should be smaller, we should give some kind of guideline as to the parameters we are comfortable with.
So you're in the dimension standards.
And I really don't want to use the term like, because it's not a matter of us liking it or not. It really is a matter of this 2,000 square foot rule that came into play in 2008. And so far, everyone's been trying to do their best to abide by it. It's special use permit, so we can say yes. It's just the challenges of this. So maybe we do need to decide as a whole, if the consensus is go to DEM and we continue to rattle around the numbers, or ask for both, go to DEM and also see if there's any way you can tweak it to get it down closer to 2,000. Am I correct in thinking that?
I would think so. Yeah, that's very reasonable.
What?
I would just like
Go
maybe
ahead.
give them some guidance as far as where you want them, where you would like the applicant to, how you would like them to reduce it.
Perhaps DEM could make a recommendation as to what size they're comfortable with.
No, I don't.
They
I
won't.
don't think
They won't?
No.
Oh.
Excuse my unfamiliarity with how you work. If we said we reduced, we have to choose the right number of gross square footage. And just follow along with me for a moment here. By X amount. There are architectural reasons why the plan is like it is. But if I said
For
if
instance,
if we pushed back what is the southern line on the addition,
Mhm.
there is some triple gain because there's basement, first floor and second floor.
And actually, the application stated that you have a 37-foot max height, but it's 32 today, 35 when the house was built, because there wasn't any regulation, and 25 for the garage.
But I think some of this is the height of the existing house.
Yeah.
Is 34.5 or 34 something?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're well below it.
Well,
It's,
this is meeting the 35.
Yeah.
34.5, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we're conforming in that. Now, where I was going with my question,
You're
Right, but-
saying the addition on the back of the house,
It's the
that's,
same height as the house.
and you're saying that's 35 because the height is, yeah, I get it. That's not what I looked at on the plan, and it looked like it was.
This is an addition, it's the same height.
hold on a
It can
second.
only be 30.
We have this.
That's what I wasn't sure of, if
Yeah.
if the town can grant an addition on a pre-existing non-conforming house, do you go by the 35 that it was originally built, or the original height, because there was no ordinance then, or does it have to adhere to 32?
Yeah, so the highest number listed on the proposed exterior elevations is 31 foot 8 inches.
Okay, so
And
then
that's-
why does it show on the plan as being equal to the roof line?
That is-
'Cause
that
it
the
is.
height of
It's
the-
from-
of the-
it's-
Okay, well, it's somewhere on their application it says 34.6 or 34.5. I'm sorry, I didn't print my document. It just came yesterday and I didn't. I
Oh,
should-
here we go.
Right, and you're reviewing the renderings right now, like you just received those, so,
Well, the renderings don't have dimensions on them. It's from the floor plan.
Right.
From earlier.
I guess this one.
Actually, I
Yeah.
think I might have it here.
Yeah, so, all right, sorry, I was mistaken. On the north elevation, on the proposed exterior elevations, the existing main block of the house from finished grade of the driveway level is 34 feet 10 inches.
Okay. So that's the height of the house, and that's the height of
existing house.
Of
Right,
the
yeah.
existing house.
and that's the height of this
No,
southern
No,
addition.
because the grade on the back is
Higher than,
higher than the grade on the front where the 34-foot dimension was taken.
Because it's measured from the grade.
Yeah, it's
roof line,
dimension,
not
that's
roof
at its lowest point on the back of the driveway, and because of the topography of the site, it isn't.
Right.
Yes, we've studied this closely,
I
if you can not,
Thank you.
Okay.
Where-
so could you
where-
just maybe just tell us what the height is of the addition? What would that,
finished grade, it is 31 feet 8 inches.
but you're
where-
saying it's, okay, I think we should.
But-
But the house is taller from the finished grade of the front.
Because there's
There's a grade.
the ground is lower
Yep.
where
got
the
it.
addition's going, so,
And the
That's-
addition is behind the house and the other is in
Yeah.
front of the house.
got it.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry to our fellow audience members.
I know I don't need to waste anyone's time. I just need to understand this.
Where I was going, it is probably a place that I don't know whether you'd be comfortable with. Do we say that there is a volume that works? And I think that that's probably the challenge for a designer is to say, you know, how long, how far, you know, how long is a piece of string kind of discussion. So I won't go there. So,
Yeah,
so
I think the only.
I'll
numbers
I'll
we
leave it
can-
where we left it.
Yeah, I think the only numbers we can give.
Are the numbers that we have.
All the numbers that are on the chart.
Yeah, I got it.
And then everything else we have to review.
Usually,
Yeah.
usually I want to be on the same side of saying, no, we don't want to do that because it goes into the unknown.
Yeah,
you know, so.
yeah, gotcha. So the question is, how should we move forward?
Well, it sounds like everyone wants to hear from DEM.
Well, that, and then I think the applicant should know if the
size of the house.
size of the house has to be down, you know.
'Cause
the
if you-
addition
Yeah, if you
Sounds-
face a no from DEM, what is your recourse? Are you going to try to have maybe approve just the connection and not jut out? Because
I
that-
think we'd task Ken Cole with trying to determine where the straw is that breaks the camel's back. You know,
because
and
DEM might just say, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to disrupt any land.
then it's a whole other discussion, right?
Right.
But
Then
that
you
would,
might be able to still do the connection, but nothing else, because the connection doesn't.
I mean, I have no problem telling you, looking at the plans, that I mean, because it conveniently has the 50-foot wetland buffer right through what looks like, I'm sorry, I don't know what floor I'm on, proposed first floor, goes through storage. There's a powder room that's in the buffer, then
Yep.
majority of the family room.
right.
So
So,
basically the family room is looks like that, the volume of the family room or that part is, you know, the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were to draw a line, now and again, I'm on the proposed second. floor,
And the extra
so
bathroom, yeah.
if you drew a line from the stairway hall, and then you have a wall that has, inside that wall is like the primary bathroom. That whole portion, if you do a line straight across,
the basement I've got.
and this is just me
Yep.
personally.
You designing on the hoof?
And I
What we
would
try not to do.
recommend that everyone visit the site if you have the time.
Yeah,
You can
So-
see,
It's far more
Right here.
impactful in real life.
yep,
from here straight across.
Yep.
And up, I don't have, it's everything over here. You know, I'm looking at like if you have to go back and reduce volume, don't waste your time. At least for me, if this is still gonna be there. I guess.
well,
I don't know
There's-
how to, like, I know there's a
Mm.
first floor, second floor. And
there's lots of things
Really not our
and
responsibility.
we shouldn't be
Design
designing on them. Because,
Not our responsibility.
this is a dangerous process and that's why I retracted where I was going with, give me a square footage and we'll fit it,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that because it's just bad design. It's, we're architects and we want to do good design.
So then,
I just
So-
have one
so-
question about the screened-in porch and whether or not you have included that in your calculations for
Andrew,
For living, because is a screen and porch considered living space or just porch?
you exclude, right, so for the porches and decks that are not enclosed. I just want to make sure that you're not actually over any prohibited numbers.
Yeah, it's excluded from building footprint, and living area, but is included in the gross area. As it's exterior. space.
Which is the one that is, because it is included in the gross area, it is the most impactful. We'll just put it that way.
So would the group be comfortable giving a guideline of no expansion closer, moving closer to the wetlands? And then you come up with whatever design you please?
Let me, well, that's for the group. I'll
Yeah,
answer your question for the group.
yeah. How do you feel about that, Jean? Instead of giving a numerical limit, say, come up with a design that does not encroach into the wetlands.
Like,
It connects the two buildings and it doesn't encroach into the wetland
It
area.
doesn't, I don't even want to say
be a 40
connects the two buildings, let them do what they want to do, just don't get closer to the wetlands. Period.
Question.
How do you feel about that, team?
This is on,
Well, it's also a matter of mass because it's
Okay,
getting
yeah.
closer to the 2,000 square foot footprint number.
It'll be the result.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Or a plea? The corner of the garage building is at 44.4 from the wetlands.
Okay.
Do we use that as guidance for the corner for future design if it goes that way? It's, in other words, it's no further than where we were. And
I hear you.
I have no idea whether that makes it work. I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's the same distance.
Right. Without thinking about it, I would favor that.
Well,
Wait,
At-
I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
The corner of the existing garage building from the south of that, and it's on our site plan. You see, there's a series of dimensions that come off of the building
It's on this one.
to the wetland.
So it's 44. There's the corner and it's 44 to the wetland.
Okay, I'm there.
Got it?
Okay, got it.
As to say for consistency, that's a building line.
From there to there.
As I say, I don't
40.
know whether I'm gonna be tearing my hair out about it later, but at least it's a place to say, okay, this is the level of incursion that exists on the property now.
Mhm.
We have all these other mitigative factors.
This is 36.
Let's be consistent in it.
DM's probably
It for us is, we gotta chop 7+ feet out of the building. So that's why we're designing.
You could argue that it would not increase the nonconformity.
Correct. Basically.
So for that reason, I would be comfortable. And still, I want DM's opinion.
Yeah.
Your closest spot is 36 feet, is that correct?
exists, yeah, for the.
Proposed.
Proposed is
Yeah,
36.
sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the question. I
So-
mean,
This is our, yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Right. Mhm,
Better than that.
mhm.
so
Kind of kill two birds with one stone.
I think we, at this point, just need to come to a consensus as to whether we're working towards getting closer to the 2,000 and
Yeah, we'd like to get, I like your comment.
Numbers.
That 44 is like a guideline. I mean, just for me, speaking for myself, because that will reduce, get closer to the 2,000.
And I have some reasonable, knowing our design, and as I said, it's 3 floors there, so towards the 7,500 square foot number. That's gonna be a big peel rather than it would be for a 1-story space where it wouldn't move
Correct.
7,500 square feet back very much. This is kind of a triple play,
so there's a lot less.
I
earth movement.
concur.
that much.
You.
Right. So I think that's a good, or just metric to use moving forward. And then again, though, I think that will also help potentially with the DM,
It should.
not knowing the process, but I know CRMC and that's,
I-
that can't be much off. That's a pain in the neck.
And DM, once they view a site, you really don't know whether they're gonna let you to do anything. other than repair and amend what's there,
Sure,
you know,
sure.
physically.
And Ken is,
With all due respect to DEM,
yeah,
but,
yeah,
Yeah.
but Ken is.
They have to see the
Our
site.
expertise, he's experienced with them.
Mhm.
And so, you know, we will be in his guidance and just when it comes to satisfying the technical.
Yeah.
So,
We need to hear from the others.
Anyone else? Are we,
Yeah, I mean, I feel kind of funny giving you a hard and fast, like, we'll say yes if you do this, we'll say, you know, or we won't give a favorable advice, or at least you do why, but I think generally my comments from before that there's a lot of bulking. It's considerably over our permitted sizes and extends into the buffer zone with those increases. So I think that does, to a certain extent, achieve the issues that I personally saw with it as it exists currently. So yes.
so do you have a better understanding or a clear understanding of where you should go from here? And with our apology for being so
no.
challenging, but
No, I think, I don't know what the design is gonna do, but it's not gonna change its appearance much from the front, which
Mhm.
will keep everybody
Hmm.
saying that this historic asset is still,
well,
you know, attractive.
Yeah.
And we have to work our way through the program and satisfying our client and, you know, do we lose a bathroom? What do we do? You know,
Yeah.
we'll work our way through it, but
Okay.
within the context of the idea of maintaining the consistent offset from the wetlands. Hopefully we're good and can make it work.
Okay.
You know, it would be really helpful for us to also, you know, get it to DEM and
Right.
Yeah.
get to zoning and walk these things through.
And-
Yeah.
We'll be diligent and maybe come up with a new design.
right.
By, you know,
You
by
have
2
a
weeks
job.
from now and
Maybe have some
try to
bright
do that.
nights.
So,
This is
um,
gonna be your
but that's-
best job yet.
This is our job and we take it seriously, so.
So
we'll do
do
that.
we-
And you couldn't, you would have to submit plans to the zoning board.
Absolutely.
At least 10 days prior to their meeting.
So if I do my math, we have to do this in 4 days?
But we have to hear it again, correct?
Well, it depends on what your vote is. I mean, Allison can maybe weigh in on whether or not,
I see.
if you are asking the applicant to return with this design and you're continuing the public hearing to a date certain, or you are issuing an advisory and allowing them to proceed to the zoning board. That's your decision.
I think we have to have you come back, unfortunately. I apologize, but
I love looking at the rooster out your window, but I mean,
I know.
you know.
we can't give an advisory on a plan we haven't seen. We won't.
And so the applicant's clear, it's the overage.
It's
First,
the overage and the.
The overage and the wetland.
And
And
the buffer.
and if you had a plan while DEM is reviewing your application, I guess you have to submit the plan to them anyway. You have to have the plan first, then submit to them. But if while they're reviewing your plan and you have a revised plan that you think you want to present to us, we could likely get you on an agenda. How many days does it?
You would need to continue this public hearing to a date certain, and which would be,
Which we
you
don't
could
have.
continue it until July 10th to avoid advertising and all of the legal requirements that go with a public hearing.
Mhm.
So if you continue it, if you give the applicant your advice and you continue it, then they could submit it prior to that.
Is that
public hearing.
realistic or?
Yeah, because Ken will obviously have to respond and revise the site plan and all those other things too that go with this. I'll take it. We'll put it that way. And I believe that you need a letter from us agreeing to extend the
Yeah,
process.
just gonna ask them.
Yeah, I know how,
Well, I mean,
Those things
they
will
can
go.
say that, they could state that right now if you're willing to extend.
if you'll
everyone
accept
agree?
that, that's fine.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do that orally here and we can follow it up verbally if you need.
Okay.
Um,
I would say we should, yeah, but we could vote to extend to the July
10th,
10th
Okay,
hearing.
okay.
I'll second
So,
Right.
do you
We'll
want
try to be
make a
briefer.
motion to continue the public hearing to
Correct.
July 10th? Thank you.
Correct. And Chris second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
We
Well,
really
thank you for your patience
You're working
and
with us.
we'll do our best.
Okay,
All right.
great. Okay, so the next on our agenda is Peter and Susan Gibbons. Plat 8 lot 108, fire number 281, Old New Haven House Road advisory to the zoning board for an application for a special use permit under section 513D for construction of an accessory dwelling unit for year-round residents.
Yes,
Susan,
yes.
we've read the application. We'd love to hear what you're presenting.
Sure. The good news is that we have an existing DEM permit and an existing septic system. So we don't have any wetlands issues. What we're requesting, we have an existing foundation right now that we had originally planned as, or originally submitted as a storage building so that the foundation could be put in place. The foundation has been in place now for 2 years, and we've decided to change our focus on storage and move it to a 513 year-round rental. So we'd like to build this 513 accessory dwelling unit on the existing foundation. So really, from what I can see, the only reason we need a special use permit is that we are above 1,200 square feet.
Yeah.
Everything else is, I believe, conforming.
Above 1,200, below 15, is that?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
above
Yeah.
1,200, we are above 1,200 and below 15.
And I had a question on your original application. It had the square footage as 1,530, but on your revised, it's shy.
Right,
So you're just cutting out some of the square feet of the
Yes.
living space. Okay.
yes. Yeah, we cut some square footage living space to keep it under the 1,500. Correct.
Anyone have any questions?
No.
It looked very cut and dry. You already had your DEM permitting in place. You have your septic already installed,
Yep,
correct?
and the conformance testing on the septic has been
Mhm.
done. So that all of that is done right now. It's just right now it's a capped foundation.
Okay. Any comments from our audience?
Just one really.
It's definitely right there.
I just had one comment about the architecture too. It's the drawing,
The drawing.
and it's the second to the last page where you laying out the bath and the storage in the bedrooms. Is that staircase? Yeah, yeah. That staircase in the middle, is this a hallway going down? Is this a platform above the staircase?
It's a landing.
It's a landing.
It's a landing.
It's a landing.
Got it.
Yep, so there's 2 bedrooms, 2 baths and storage.
Mhm.
That's the second floor.
So you hit a
Right.
blank wall with two.
You hit a blank wall in this bedroom
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
and the doors for this. This is all blank wall. How do I get from the bedroom
Yeah,
to the
clearly
bath?
there's a door into the bath.
Okay.
For both of them. I think you're right, it doesn't show.
No,
on
it
the
doesn't
plan,
show it on the
but there
plan.
is definitely a door into the bath.
Into the storage. Okay. It's
You-
just.
you climb out this window over there and you go over here and back in
This,
that.
this window's clear. The other ones are not. Okay, thanks.
And it did say on, just in case anybody questioned it, on Allison's summary, that the hand-drawn plans are lacking a source.
I'd like
And
that.
that's because he's right there. There's the source of the hand-drawn plans.
Yeah, they're minimal.
So maybe name, date. I just wasn't sure if an architect had drawn the
We needed-
plans, like what,
Name and a date, yeah.
Are we required to have a picture?
No,
is that acceptable, Jen, to the town?
has been in the
Those
past.
plans?
It is my understanding you're not required to have architectural plans for residential, but whether or not the building official will accept the plans as presented is up to him.
Okay.
building
And
official.
yes, they should have like the name, the date, the scale on the plans. And I would suggest maybe updating those before you go to the zoning board. But that's minor.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we can add that for sure.
and maybe
Okay.
go to the building department too, you know, if you have a chance, just kind of check in, see if they need anything additional.
Sorry, are you hearing it? I'm not-
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Any other questions?
No.
What?
I would like to propose that we send a favorable advisory to the zoning board
Second.
for the application.
Second.
That was quick.
This was very cut and dry. I mean, it's, yeah.
Sorry, you
we-
had
We
to.
had everything we needed.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one question, there comes a point that we need to send letters to our butters, when does that happen?
It needs to happen 14 days prior to the public hearing of the zoning board.
So we're waiting to hear when that will be?
The zoning board set your public hearing for, yours is in July? July, so it's July 24th. Send me an email tomorrow and then I will forward you a letter. I haven't even created like the legal notice or anything yet because there's still time.
I've got the addresses already, so if you forward me the sample.
I can do that. And then you can edit the Word document.
Okay, thank you. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is Daniel Hart, FJR Trust Plat 2 Lot 19-1, fire number 745, Corn Neck Road. Advisory to the zoning board for an application by Devlin Hart for a variance from section 306C and a special use permit under section 513D for construction of an accessory dwelling unit for year-round residents.
Yes. Thank you all for being here. I know how valuable your time is this time of year. As you can see in my proposal, there's an existing 513 on the property close to where I propose to build. I'd like to move, or I'm going to demolish that structure and move the foundation further away from the property line. And my primary goal is to utilize the existing grades and layout of the property for the functionality of the utilities and minimum land disturbance.
So, question?
Yes, please go
Any
ahead.
questions?
So I'm just reading a quote. The siding of the proposed ADU does not meet the minimum setback at 14 feet from the southern property line, where 40 feet is required for zoning official. So my question for you is, since you are tearing down the old and building the new, why can't you move it so that you don't have that problem?
The goal is to use the grades, as I've discussed, in order to facilitate the construction of a modernized septic system for the existing farmhouse and the proposed building.
I see.
Trying to, let me find out what's.
Because that lot is juggling wetlands too, so you're keeping everything outside of that jurisdiction.
Yeah, so I'm working closely with Ken Cole and where we've designed, it's quite a diverse topography. And so where we've designed the existing septic system, the functionality is to have the both houses connected into a new modern system because the existing galley system is, you know, on the verge of failure. It's probably 60 years old, 50 years old at this point. So my goal is to clean all that up and use what I have without disturbing, for my mom's sake, the property
Right.
too much.
Let's see if I had any. I think the only,
So the existing two-bedroom building is within,
It's 5
it's
feet.
on the line.
Yeah, it's online.
5 feet.
Yeah.
And so you're moving it further away than the setback.
Right.
yeah, it'll be an improvement for setbacks.
This fall.
I've never had any
From our
setbacks.
perspective, this fall under the.
The zoning board.
Zoning
would
will hear that.
would review the variance, but you can certainly comment on it if you wish to.
My only
Here.
comment was on the plans themselves, and zoning may request this, they may not, but it's very hard to see the numbers on the plans.
Yes, Jen had mentioned that.
Okay,
and
great.
I'm working with my architect, Rob Horgan, to increase the font. Is that
Yeah.
what's helpful?
Yeah.
So you can see the numbers easily.
Exactly,
Okay.
because even on the computer,
It's
making
hard.
them larger, they
Okay.
blur out because how small they are in whatever
Sure.
program he's using, once it gets translated to us. That would be terrific. I mean, you have it written in your notes what the heights are, so that was very helpful, having your dimensions in here. So I didn't have any further comment. I just don't know zoning will require it, so.
I will definitely speak to him about that.
Okay, Allison, with the new state regulations, is the new ruling on setback? Because I know they give much more relief than we originally would have.
Well, that's what, Jen, right? You've had that conversation. That's where I put in that 40 feet. Is that what
Yes.
your
So the
calculation was?
new-
'Cause it would have been 50, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
correct. So they're allowed by right to have 40 feet
Uh,
because of the new regulation and they, in a zone that is normally 50 feet.
So
This is a
from my
substandard lot.
The substandard lot, and they have an increase in the lot building coverage that they're
Mm.
not even close to, so.
So from my perspective, and then I'll be quiet.
No, you-
Rat trains. I think we should list the reasons why this kind of relief is necessary, and pass it on to the zoning board. But if we don't have adequate reasons for relief, then I don't see us doing it.
Well, I think the adequate reasons are that what Devlin already stated, and if you look at the topography, you don't have much of a choice.
Those are valid reasons.
And if he's updating the septic,
Mhm.
I mean, those are all, I think valid reasons. Claire, like Claire's mentioned, it's like a lot of these setbacks are site specific. I think we've talked about that before when we talked about solar panels or something silly.
It's certainly
Right.
an interesting lot. It's how long and thin and, there's rolling and it's been a farm for, hundreds of years. So they certainly manipulated the land quite a bit. And I'm doing my best to, not disturb too much and use it to my advantage.
You're also moving the existing building away from the stone wall now, or the property line now. So you're just coming further away. So that's even better.
And that's, I think maybe that's what you're meaning, Sosha, too, with if we're voting to give a favorable advisory, we can say the reasoning is.
Yeah.
um,
Topography and the.
Yeah, the
lot
lay of the
dimension.
land
Yeah.
really is, that's
Yeah.
your hardship, and you're, without disrupting, also adding a brand new septic system, which when it comes to failure, you don't want to end up with that challenge. Where do I put it if I'm
Sure.
forced to push my building further away from the setback? And that's, I think, zoning's jurisdiction too. They'll understand what the hardships are. They'll know how that's defined.
Have you, I was just wondering, have you had a conversation with your neighbors?
Um,
'Cause-
Well, so Naomi Karis is the
Yeah.
closest, and I have spoken to her in person,
Ah.
and she was very encouraging.
Great.
And,
Cause I mean, that's really who it impacts.
yes.
Your
Mhm.
neighbor.
Yep, and, like we said, I am moving further away. I know I'm not in compliance completely, but I'm making an attempt.
Mhm.
Well, you can't go in front because of the wetland buffer, or I guess that be the back. No, that's the front.
The Corn Neck
It's the
Road.
front,
Existing,
Corn Neck
yeah.
Road,
There's a
Right,
wetland.
the
exactly.
west side.
You can't go down the hill
Can't head
because then
west.
where you're gonna put your septic.
Right.
You really don't have a choice. So
Mhm.
that's kind of,
That's your hardship.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's easy enough to identify.
So if anyone else have any comments?
No, just to say, I agree with Sosha, list those reasons why,
Sure.
because they're very clear and they're very
Mhm.
reasonable and sensible, and you're building two structures that are fairly close to each other. You're using the property as best you can, and you spoke to the neighbors. I would definitely make that list.
All right. And I know it's not our jurisdiction, but it's a good looking design too. And
Thank you.
I mean, everyone's going to appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well thought out.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I've worked hard to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
try to be in compliance as best I can.
So just to maybe mention that if you really like the design, you might want to look at it for your, you could speak to Rob Horgan if he
Yeah.
would be willing to donate it.
Yeah.
And
Sure he
Devlin, to donate.
There are 513 applications for our
100.
expedited process.
I mentioned that.
Yeah,
Great.
I do have a question, clarification on number of bedrooms. That was,
Yes,
it looks like the floor plan showed 4 bedrooms, the application states 3, and just clarifying how many bedrooms we're talking, and, does the OWTS accommodate for it?
Yes.
Thank you.
I am aware that the first floor does show a bedroom in that study. That was merely for size reference, and I've asked my architect to take that off. I do not intend that to be a bedroom. And I've also had the closet removed because I might understand that's part of what,
It's technically a bedroom if it has a closet. Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay.
that's primarily just like a playroom, study, accessory room, not intended to be a bedroom. And the design of the septic will reflect that.
Thank you, Allison. If I caught that, I didn't make any notes. I didn't, yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. That's a good idea before you go to zoning, because they're gonna
Yes.
question that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe I've even submitted a new set of plans, Jen, without that on the, I don't know.
Plans that,
They were emailed a few days ago.
well,
From-
they could be
Okay.
part of the font plans that we were trying.
Yeah, we were trying to work on the font and we were also.
So I was only looking at the font and I didn't.
Yeah.
Plans, and
Okay.
those are the plans I gave to you. I don't know if
I didn't recognize there was a
Forwarded.
change. Yeah.
yeah, I did not order,
Okay.
but
Well,
that would be great.
that's clarified. Thank
Yes,
you.
Things I'm working on.
Anything else?
Okay.
If there isn't anything else, I'd like to make a motion for a favorable advisory to the zoning board based on the discussion we had regarding the reasons are pretty clear as to why you're going to be requesting a sideline variance. It makes sense to us. It's a logical move and you're actually less non-conforming if there is anything such as more non-conforming than non-conforming.
Yeah, yeah.
That's always been a question.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yes. Okay, then do we have time to discuss? This is a pretty quick conversation. I think if everyone saw Claire's language regarding the 513, it's section 513, accessory dwelling units, D, accessory dwelling units by special use permit, expedited approval process, discuss and act on planning board pre-approved plans. The planning board may from time to time review and approve such building plans. Details and plans of planning board pre-approved structures shall be held by the zoning official and may be obtained upon request. Claire put together with,
Well, no, I
Did
think,
they-
Gail, I think we're still, because of me, working on exactly what that's gonna look like, but I
Okay.
think, so I think maybe just an update to the board is that Jen, I'm sorry, I will get you something that's like, I think
Okay.
my feeling was to make it a little less, formal, I guess, and to make it more
Yes.
inviting for people. Like, I feel like you got all the technical information in there and then maybe some context might be
That would
good.
be great.
okay, I thought we were,
Yes.
we were voting on or discussing the form that you created for builders. That didn't have to come before us?
No, so this
Okay.
is this is the document that we would.
Not builders,
maybe give
architects.
to the architects, yes. So
Yeah.
I put the language together that like
Was
is part of the ordinance
Mhm.
and some of the comments that that we discussed
Okay.
when we met, and then Claire's going to make it a little softer and then
Oh, I thought it looked good. Okay.
more inviting, sorry.
I think
For the applicant.
Not softer,
all the
but
information.
yes.
I think when because we don't have to go through a formal process. Is that correct? We're gonna be just sharing.
Allison, I think, is shaking her head. yes.
Allison,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You can go ahead and solicit informally, put something in
So
the
it doesn't
paper,
need
put
to
something
be-
online.
An RFP, that kind of thing. It's just
Great.
gonna be a more general solicitation of plans. I think, as you were saying, Jen, maybe we're gonna reach out to Devlin's architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already reached out to a few people,
Great.
and then I think you have some ideas
Yeah.
as well, so would you like us to put this on a special meeting, or would you like to wait till July to?
Does
You need to put it on agenda for the plan, like just put together almost like a flyer, informational
And then, right.
solicitation, and then just start using it. I don't know if the planning board
If the
obviously is
board
gonna be
is
approving
comfortable.
plan.
Yeah, does the board need to approve?
They don't need to approve, I assumed they wanted to, but if they are comfortable with us
that working group. just-
document, then
yeah.
we could do that and
How-
just get it out there.
How does the board feel? Right now, it almost looked like an ordinance layout. It had all the criteria for an architect to look at and say, we want to pass these on to architects and say, hey, look, would you be interested in creating a plan for the EAP process? So that like if the Horgan plan comes before us, it doesn't have to come before us. It can go to Jen. Or another architect. We want to have 4 or 5 plans that people can choose from, so they don't have to come to us every time they're going to exceed 1,200 square feet.
And I do have 3 potential property owners waiting for plans.
So if you're all in agreement not to have to review it, or could it be circulated through email and or we're not allowed to do that, correct?
I can email it, you
Yeah.
cannot vote on it.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Would everyone be comfortable looking at an email version and just making comments to Claire? Can we do that?
you could probably, I think I could email it and you could comment back to me.
Great. Is that acceptable to
All
everyone?
this
So it
is
doesn't
a
have to be an
document.
agenda item?
And I would prefer.
Yeah, then it might,
What, Jen? What would you prefer?
Just to not delay it another month. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
if you start reaching out already, and then, I don't think this portion of this process needs to be on a formal planning board agenda. I think it's, we have the go-ahead to start reaching out and soliciting those, building plans. And then when you have some of them, you can then put that on the agenda for the planning board to review the plans to see if they want to, approve those for inclusion in your office to offer through this process.
Yeah, I
That's my
think that-
recommendation.
That
yeah.
will be the next time you guys see this is when they're actual plans. So just
Yeah.
as an example, if Devlin's plans had been approved as part of this EAP, the only reason we would have seen that, I think, is because it was within the setback. We would have approved.
You wouldn't see it. It would
Okay,
go
so
to the
zoning would have
zoning.
seen it.
well,
I
it's,
would've-
but it's over 1,200 feet, so we would have seen it.
No, you
No.
don't see it if they use your approved plan.
Yes.
I issue it
I was
as a
confused
zoning
by what you said.
official and because they're using the approved plans.
Yeah,
However, with Devlin's application, because it's in the setback,
So maybe I should say
It would
the
go.
Gibbons plan. If we had approved the Gibbons plan as part of this process, the only thing they needed a special use permit for was the size. We had already approved those plans. They selected them from Jen. We would not have had that application in front.
correct.
and zoning might, because it will no longer be a
No, they-
special use permit. It might be a side yard variance. That's outside of our,
Well, Gibbons is not a side yard variance.
I'm just
So,
talking about
but,
Devlin's.
Yeah, Hart would see, yes.
So we're not assuming people don't have to go to zoning. We're only talking about planning.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
But they may not need, they wouldn't need a special use permit, right? They wouldn't need a special use permit.
They might need a sideline variance, but they won't be coming to us for that.
Correct.
Okay, we got it.
But I may recommend that the zoning board send it to you for an advisory because of this process. If if an applicant was over the lot building coverage by, lot or a 5 foot set, there are reasons that it could potentially come back to you.
And they might not be able to use that third lower level because they don't have they have a flat piece of property. So
there's-
they're gonna have to
there's
understand all.
variables in it.
Okay,
Right, right.
great.
Great.
Our house is a good example, small lot, 1,600 feet, and that portion of it is sort of rammed earth into that slope,
Right.
which becomes half the basement, which is really
Mhm.
low grade.
So your lot qualifies for an increase in your lot building coverage and reduced setbacks.
Mhm.
So is everyone comfortable with going forward
Yes.
Yeah.
as
yeah.
discussed? And you're good with that? Okay, so do we have to vote on that?
I don't believe
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
And then number 10 on the agenda is establish the technical review committee. I'll be honest, I haven't thought about it.
Number 11. Oh, what am I
Yeah, we
reading?
shifted
Number
the-
11. We shifted.
numbers, yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to be on such a committee because I'm already on sea level lines.
Mhm.
Do you want to think about the new requirement? Do you want to think about it and put it on for July or the special meet? Well, and maybe not the special meeting, but
July, I think would be
And-
fine.
It's up.
I know we have
You
to- Allison-
establish that committee. It doesn't go to the council to establish it.
Okay.
This board does, so you.
I have to look at the list, and Allison, I think we have a list that suggested where these members come from in the different parts of the
Within the-
community.
Yes, within the ordinance. So we, why don't we circulate that for you
Yep.
within your packet for next month, so you can refer to that.
And do we have to have names for the technical review
in-
committee?
In the past, you had identified like town planner as opposed to Allison Ring, so.
Okay,
I can
So
send you what you
titles
had.
is what we need.
And what the ordinance,
Okay,
the new ordinance, the revised ordinance.
Okay,
great.
okay, then you'll circulate that. Okay.
So I make a motion to move number 10 to the July 10th meeting.
Second.
And if you have time to take a look at that, so we could all confer with who we thinks are the important titles on that review committee.
And I sent that around a while, but it was a while
Yeah, I have to
ago.
find it.
It was, I'll do it again.
Okay.
Great,
And,
thanks.
and could you repeat in your handout what the role is of the review committee?
We'll send that section of the ordinance that was just
Right.
adopted recently. Yeah.
Okay.
I had to think about it. That's why I was like.
I know you had it before, Jen.
Do
know it
we have
exists.
minutes to approve?
No.
Okay, we do not have minutes to approve, so that was number 11. So I can make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to
All
say,
right.
thank you.